where's the? There you go. Perfect. So I'm having my good friend. Maybe not later on. We're about to go on the air here, so you guys are seeing us before. This is Roxy, and I'm Rich, and I got to pull my. Let's see. So maybe I should back up a little bit, or do this. That's even better. Okay. So, it helps to have lighting, right? Okay, folks, this is not. See, we do this before we go on now. This is not Hollywood in the back lot at Paramount, but let's see if I back up a little bit. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so we're gonna do the old 10, 9, 3, 2, 1.
Yes, I know it well.
Okay, I'm sure you do. All right, so it is a Thursday, trick or treat. God, I can't believe it. Time flies. So here we go. We're 10, 9, 8, 5, 4, 3, 2, and we are live. Hello, everybody. I'm Rich Lieberman, and welcome to the Thursday Halloween. Oh, my God. Stop the presses. It's the Media Pulse. My guest is ESPN broadcaster. He's a Bay Area guy, good friend, lovely person to talk about the business and so forth. Hey, how are you? Roxy Bernstein's with us.
Good to see you, Rich.
Yeah, about time, right?
I know it's been a while.
Yeah, how many warnings did you get? Don't do the show. It's crazy. It's funny.
Well, I ran into Starkey the other day,
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. I saw him. I went to the Cal game on Saturday.
He's a wacky guy. Oh, my God, the band is on. Yeah, right. This is an alarm clock. You know that?
Is
the
it
band
really?
Is on. No, it isn't, but it should be, right?
It should be a lot of people's wake up.
How many times he's been asked about that. Anyway, not the worst thing in the world. Roxy is with ESPN. He has catapulted himself into not that you were otherwise, the big leagues, but you're getting, and let me just say, first of all, let's give you the proper intro. So ESPN, he does college football, college basketball, you're about to embark upon, Major League Baseball, obviously with ESPN, did stints with the A's, Florida at the time. They
were the Florida Marlins at the time.
I know my fact here. Well, how you doing?
It's good to be here. I'm doing great.
Great.
Just ready to embark on, the calendar flips and a new season begins.
Right.
I'm juggling basketball, football, family, hockey. So
that's right. I was just going to announce too. And I got people telling me how wonderful, terrific you are. I become a hockey kind of, not a addict. I watch it. I know going to a game. Everybody told me.
You're a connoisseur.
Oh, yeah. I got your blue line right here, pal. I finally know what a power play is. No, I know that. I love Randy. Yeah. Oh, my God. There's a white line and then there's a blue line. Yeah. No, it's a very. I always tell my friends, the two that are out there still, if you want to impress a date, take her to, in this case, her. If you're a woman, you're watching, take him.
Whoever you're with, to be politically correct, take him to a hockey game.
It's
great entertainment. It's fun.
You is that the top of your sports and personal? Like some people like baseball, football, basketball. Where would you put hockey?
I put them all the same. I can't pick. It's like I got two kids, right? You could ask me which one's my favorite. It's the same thing with sports.
Which one is your favorite? You must have. Get the hell away. Were they boys or girl? Boys.
I got one of each. Got a daughter is a senior in high school, a son that's a freshman in high school. So, but no, I get asked that a lot. Like, what's your favorite sport to call?
Yeah, well,
and my standard line is, "What's paying me that day?"
Thank you.
Yeah,
Mr. I know what you mean.
I love it all.
You're professional. You got another. I know.
I
just thought maybe one sport like college football. I know a lot of people say, "Oh God," they worship their Saturday afternoon, evening, what have you. And, maybe pro football is second. I used to love basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's kind of the regular season. It's kind of and now I'm really into. I love hockey and I love baseball, and I don't really, what happened with the A's, my team I grew up with, but I watched the World Series. By the way, what do you think of the World Series? Any reaction?
First off, I'm surprised the Dodgers won, considering the pitching issues that they had with guys like Kershaw and Glasnow and May and Gonsolin all on the injured list. And Dave Roberts having to piece this thing together, because I did their division series
in San Diego. Right.
Against the Padres.
Right.
And I was convinced the Padres were going to win that series. And they were up 2-1, trying to close it out at home. And people are predicting doom and gloom for the Dodgers. And we had a pregame meeting because we meet with the managers before every game, before, 3 hours before the game, whatever.
Right, of course.
And he was mapping out the game plan for us that night.
Oh.
And he was telling us precisely how he was going to run the game because he was calling in a bullpen day and they didn't have a starting pitcher that was fresh to go. So he was starting Ryan Brazier, reliever. They used 8 bullpen pitchers to shut out the Padres, get it to a game 5 in LA. And then they had Yamamoto in game 5.
And shut him out.
Yeah. And the Padres didn't score for the last 24 innings of that series. And then the Dodgers rode that momentum. They beat the red hot Mets. And now, the Yankees.
You had a great call when Kike Hernandez hit the grand slam. You had one of, and that's, you started getting your, and I mean notoriety in a good way. You started getting national. You're probably aware of that call that you had, that you were enthusiastic and it was exciting, but it wasn't overly homer. Not that you would be a homer, because I don't know if you're a Sandy. You know what I mean. And what is the art of that, where doing play-by-play is in itself an art, and the old adage, I mean, look, we're all to some degree, and I hate the word homer, but we all have our, I mean, I shouldn't say that, you know what I mean. How do you be happy and enthusiastic and have a signature call, yet try to be, dare I use the word, objective?
Well, first off, you love the game. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I didn't love it.
Right.
And so you have to celebrate the moment. And look, I'm not a Dodger fan. I'm not a Padre fan. I'm a baseball fan.
Yeah, right.
And so I'm there to report on the game, tell you what's happening, but do it in an entertaining, passionate, exciting style. And that was a huge moment.
It was.
And I've always tried to pride myself, Rich, on not getting in the way of the moment. Let the moment speak for. It's a lot easier to do that on television than radio. Because you can see it. Right. And sometimes for television, the best call is what you don't say and you just lay out.
So when you're doing TV play, are you looking at the field of play or are you looking at the monitor?
Yes. I'm looking at both.
You are.
So
that's a legit question.
Yeah,
a lot of people ask me to ask them, about Roxy, about that, because it especially for football, when you have the binoculars, I get that, but are they looking at the monitor or are they looking at the actual field of play?
I tend to look at both. I have a monitor position where I can kind of see both. Now it's a little bit off to the side.
Right.
I have a direct view of the field, and when I'm watching the game, most of the time I am watching the field. Right. Sometimes I'm watching the monitor. There's some ballparks where if you're working in Pittsburgh or Washington,
you're
way up there.
Yeah.
Texas, you're way up there.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to find.
And you have help a little bit, right? You have
most
broadcasters have what they call a spotter, or
for football, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Baseball,
spotter is something
so
where
much.
they give you information, just so people that.
So baseball, not so much. And baseball, we're kind of on our own a little bit more. We have a stats guy that's there for TV, not necessarily for radio. We're just a homegrown operation. It's just when I was with Jessica Mendoza working the division series, or Greg Olson in the wild card, or Doug Glanville when I did a bunch of games with him in the regular season. It's just us. And I love the fact that radio, they kind of leave us alone. You get to just do the game, right? In television, there's a lot more, as you know, that goes into it. I'm almost playing like I'm the quarterback or a traffic cop, and I'm getting information in my ears, talking to my producer in my talk back, trying to communicate that way. There's so much more on our plate when we're doing a game on TV than radio. Radio, you just kind of get left alone. You go do the game.
You're going to tell me both. I hope you do. You like, because I know a lot of I've met many broadcasters, fortunate in my life, honored to have done so, where they said, hands down, radio is a lot better. They love doing radio as opposed to television. Not that
I love both.
Not that they hate.
To be honest with you, this is not a cop out. I like both because they're different.
Okay.
They're different mediums. Like on television, when I'm doing a game,
real quick, didn't mean to interrupt. Bill King he preferred radio.
Oh yeah, and I had many conversations with Bill about when I was a kid.
Did.
And the same with Hank.
Yeah.
But on TV, basically my job, I look at it most of the time, is make the analyst a star. Right.
I've heard that.
Regardless if I was doing a basketball game with Bill Walton, I'm doing a baseball game with Jessica Mendoza on TV. It doesn't matter who I'm with, but you're there to accentuate them, bring out their expertise. Like, can I tell you that why something happened? Yeah, I can, but I don't have the credibility that they do. And because I didn't play it at the level they did. Bill was one of the greatest players ever in the history of the game. Jessica Mendoza is an Olympian.
But let me just add, and so people know, Roxy worked with Bill Walton, who just everything as advertised, right? Mm-hmm. And we'll get into that in a second. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but a lot of people didn't know you worked with Bill Walton, who was absolute. He recently passed, by the way, which most of you know already. So anyway, continue on.
But you're there to accentuate them and let them shine.
You don't need to do that with Walton.
No, because it was hard for me to get a word in.
What was that like working with him?
The best. He was the best. Rich was so different than working with anybody else. Right. It was just different. Right. And my preparation was different.
The first time you worked with him, did you?
I was intimidated the first time.
Were you?
So we're doing a game.
Did you talk to him? I mean, I'm sure you did. Beforehand, you
barely.
Did nothing?
So Bill was really adamant. Like the day, there was nothing contrived, nothing planned. Right. We were coming in as two opposite ends to do a game. We have not talked the whole day. And that's what Bill wanted. He wanted fresh.
So they just paired you with him just by virtue of the schedule?
Yeah.
That kind of a thing?
Yeah. And so, I did a little research. I talked to a couple people beforehand. All right, what am I really in store for here with Bill? I got to know.
Right.
And I went up to him that morning as we're there for the walkthroughs for the teams. And he refused to call walkthroughs or shoot-arounds. It was a practice. It was always a practice. And I will not say
walkthrough. It is like the power of the persimmon in Monterey.
And he looks at me and he goes, Roxy? I go, yes, Bill. I'm Bill with 2 L's. How are you? And
he really said that?
We're working together tonight, I hear. Yes, Bill. Great. I'm looking forward to it. And then I tried to say something to him and he goes, stops me and he goes, save it for air. Yeah, and we sat at opposite ends of the gym and we always did that at practice. And then the first conversation we're really having that day is, hi, welcome to Pauley Pavilion along with the Hall of Famer Bill Walton. I'm Roxy Bernstein. We got a game. And Bill would go into Bill Walton.
He said that.
Oh, but I remember we're about 30 seconds before we go on air. The first game we're working together. And he looks at me and he says, it is Roxy, right? I go, yes, Bill.
Good.
Roxy, I'll do my best not to get you fired. And then he can see like, oh my God, what am I in store for? And then he says, you can ask me anything you want. You'll never offend me. You'll never upset me. I'm an open book. Ask me whatever you want. And the craziest thing is, fast forward to the last game that Bill and I ever did. There was one question I always wanted to ask him. And I was waiting for the right moment.
Okay.
And it happened in the last game.
Okay.
Why wasn't he on the 1972 Olympic team?
Yeah. I've heard that question before,
and
not out loud.
It's been speculated. It's been written a little, but it never really was told.
So what did he say?
So I asked him point blank, and how crazy is it that I was holding on to this question. In the last game that we ever worked together was USC against UCLA. Why weren't you on the 72 Olympic team? And so his rationale was that they had just gotten done winning the national championship at UCLA. It was the end of his sophomore year. He was the National Player of the Year.
Sure.
And the Olympic team invited him to tryouts.
Right.
And Bill told them, because tryouts were like 2 or 3 weeks after the championship game.
Right.
And Bill is like, no, I'm not trying out. If you want me on the team, just tell me when practice starts and I'll be there. I need some time off right now.
Right.
And they're like, no, if you want to be on the Olympic team, you have to try out. Bill's like, well, I'm not trying out. So if you want me on the team, just tell me when practice starts. I'll be there, but I'm not trying out. And they said, fine. And then you're not on the team. Yeah, and that was the first team that lost.
By the way, one of the coaches on that team was John Bach.
Was he really?
Yeah, for the Warriors.
I know. Well, Iba was the head coach.
John Bach was an assistant.
Of course, Doug Collins was on that team.
The Russian massacre.
The game that ended 3 times.
Oh, yeah. I was 10 years old. That was the whole weird Olympics with, we had the great Mark Spitz. We had obviously the humongous tragedy of all that, and that was a wild time. So, but was he? I mean, people say, "Oh, it was all shtick," and I don't think it was. Many people who know him or knew him now, unfortunately, said that was Bill Walton. That he had that. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't like that, eating breakfast, or maybe he was. You know better than I do. Tell us, what was that all? I mean, what was he like off the commercial when you went to a commercial or whatever? What was it? Just the whole thing.
First off, Bill was truly one of one, and he was special in so many ways, and impacted my life. Wow. And there's no way I'll be able ever to repay the lessons that he gave me and how much I learned from him over the years, and the impact that he's had and changed me as a person. But he was as genuine as they come. He was caring. He was so curious about people, Rich. That's the thing, is he went through so much physically in his life with all the injuries back to his playing days. And even after his playing days were done, the numerous surgeries, whether it's his back, his feet, his knees, and he went through hell. Yeah. And he came out of it with a different, I think, perspective on life. And he celebrated everywhere he was at. Like, that was the place to be. No matter what game we were doing, that was the game of the millennium.
But was he the, the personality?
The eccentric? Yes.
Well, was it all eccentric? I mean, or was he like, I'm doing this to...
No, it was not. It was not an act. Okay, he was genuine.
It was genuine.
He is so knowledgeable, so well read.
So the whole thing with the Californian, I'm smelling, and he'd make comments about play. For those of you who watch Bill Walton, you know what I'm talking about. So all that was him. It was not.
No, it was not shtick.
I think you could see through that if it was.
He was kind of the NBA cookie cutter analyst. Like back in the day when he was doing games for NBC.
Right.
He was more of the basketball analyst. There was a little flair to him, and it was different because it was Bill. Right. And he was critical and wasn't afraid to speak his mind. But as he evolved and later on, I think he was more determined to entertain and inform.
Yeah, he was an entertainer.
He incited a reaction. Right. You got the Howard Stern poster right here, right?
On purpose, yeah.
Hi. Well,
Baba Booey, yeah, go ahead.
But that was a lot, the Howard Stern effect with Bill.
I understand.
Yeah. Because no matter if you loved him or you hated him, you were watching him. And I think that's what he was going for. And there's so many.
The ratings were always.
But there's so many great analysts, right? Yeah. They're breaking a play down or telling you a story. Right. How much do you remember? Do you remember stuff Bill said?
Right. Yeah, I look. It wasn't for everybody. There are people that thought he was, over the top and all that. I like I said, I'm not a gung ho guy watching college basketball. I sure as hell want to watch when Walton was on.
Yeah.
And when would they kind of pair you guys? Did you know? Well, I know beforehand that you were working with Walton.
Yes.
That must have been like,
it was,
oh my
like,
God.
I'm pinching.
The ratings were going to be. Yeah.
My 10-year-old self, like, oh my God, I'm with Bill Walton.
Right.
And
he knew the game.
Oh my God, the way he saw the game, and people wanted to criticize.
You think he could have been? His son was obviously a good coach.
He could have if he wanted to. He had more interest. He was interested in helping humanity,
right.
And he did so many things for the environment and all the charitable endeavors he was involved with at San Diego and trying to help people. And he was involved with trying to help wounded warriors coming back. There were so many things that Bill did that you just weren't aware of, that Bill was doing something like that. And he didn't do it for the notoriety. He did it for the right reasons to help people.
And last, and we're going to move on, but he's such an integral part of our culture at the time. And did you know that he was having issues with his health and all that at all? You did know. Okay.
I did. There was a select few of us that knew.
All right. I thought perhaps that. I'm not going to ask you, but
I was maybe sworn to secrecy.
I understand. Because, it's weird because I was reading somewhere that tall people, not all, have issues perhaps. Look at Chamberlain and, obviously Bill Russell. Many have died. And I'm not just talking athletes, but I read about it. I thought about Walton and he was so unique. And he was an entertainer. I mean, you worked with him. You were right there. And I'm laughing my ass off. And I know a lot of that stuff, You were doing a game with him. I think it was UCLA, or did they not work? Did they not pair him on you? Yeah,
he did a ton
of course
of UCLA.
He did. Yeah. But he was so refreshing. He was so funny, and I thought, I don't know this guy from Adam. You know him. I'm laughing. I think this guy's got to be real. Has to be. But then I don't know. Is he doing shtick? I don't think so. But yeah, and he was an entertainer.
He was, and he wanted to connect with the audience in a different way. When you're watching him, he wanted you to learn about the environment. He wanted you to learn about the geography of certain areas. And it was funny. We were doing a game up in Portland.
Right.
God, this is about 6-7 years ago.
Won a championship there in 77.
But we were doing this tournament. There was Phil Knight's 80th birthday, and they had this huge college basketball tournament to celebrate Phil's birthday. And
Phil Knight, the head of Nike.
They brought all these Nike teams in to play. And so we decided that we were going to fact check Bill. Like some of these crazy, there's no way this can be true.
Fact check Bill Wall.
During the course of the broadcast. So our sideline reporter, every time Bill said something, for example, there's 13 bridges in the city of Portland. By gosh, there are 13 bridges in the city. Like everything that we fact checked was absolutely 100% correct.
Yeah. Well, he played there. I'm sure he lived there. He sure had herbal tendencies there. So they like how he used that euphemism. All right. Well, anyway, he was. I mean, that had to be an experience. And did you? I mean, you knew him pretty well because I'd read things that you guys, not that you broke bread every night with him, but you know what I mean. You got to know him really well.
That's where it's funny, we hit it off. For the first game we did, we went to dinner that night.
Oh, wow.
And for like 2 hours, we were talking, and I'm peppering question. I mean, my gosh, I'm sitting here, I'm having dinner with Bill Walton. And it was just a great experience. I enjoyed, I thoroughly loved those times.
And he seemed like he could be as down to earth, as authentic off the air.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, a complete could have been a complete asshole off there, which you
every game we did, there would be a line after the game of people. Okay. Didn't matter how long he was there. That they just wanted to meet Bill, get an autograph, take a picture with him, just talk to Bill.
And he was that nice guy.
He didn't leave, Rich, until every person in line was taken care of. Yeah. And I'm like, come on. Like the first few times I did it with him, like, this can't be serious. Right. It was. And that's who he was. And he just loved connecting with them. I saw him give his email address. I saw him give his phone number to people. I've got questions. Here's my number. Call me. But that's who he was.
Did he ever, last thing, we'll move on, but did he ever talk about those, I'm sure the SLA thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We never went there.
You never went
there? No, I never went there.
Did he just that you did that because you didn't want to bring that up, or
out of respect for him?
I understand.
There's some things that he probably. And I don't know if he didn't want to talk about it or not.
He probably.
If he wanted to volunteer something like that, great. But I mean, I traveled internationally with Bill. We went to China for college basketball games, and we went to Shanghai for 3 consecutive years together. Wow. And had amazing experiences. And look, I'm not a deadhead. There's stuff from the Dead that
I respect them. Yeah, we just.
But I had to go to a Dead show with. I saw the Dead and Company with him at the Chase Center New Year's Eve in 2019. I had to take it in once with Bill, and it was incredible.
This is what I live for, Rox.
Bill dressed up as Father Time.
Oh, yeah.
And he was up on stage leading the midnight countdown with the band. Like Bill was swaying with the music.
I mean, I don't know personally, but I know I've. Yeah.
Amazing. Like,
what was that?
And then he's on the drum riser, like he's presiding over the crowd.
Wow.
It was an amazing experience. So it was Bill, his wife Lori, Chris Mullen, and his wife, and me. Yeah. The 5 of us. My family was out of town.
Yeah.
And I had an absolute blast. And it was incredible. I mean, I could say that, yes, I went to the Dead with Bill.
Well, of course, that was part of his personal pedigree. And he also, I remember.
And the worst place to be at a Dead show is right behind Bill.
Oh, I got
because Bill doesn't sit down; he's up dancing the whole night.
He's up and talking.
Oh,
and people forgot he not only played with Portland, UCLA, great, and then he ended his career, I believe, with the Celtics, right?
Yes, and he won a championship as a 6th man with Boston. Yeah. And Bill's got some amazing stories about playing for the Celtics, and I just couldn't get enough of those stories, playing with Larry Bird and Kevin McHale and Dennis Johnson, Robert Parrish.
That was an elite team. And it had the lore. Celtics, and Boston, and the Garden,
and
all that stuff.
it meant a great deal to him to play for the Celtics because he idolized Bill Russell. Like Bill Russell
that's his type of
was his guy.
Right.
And I remember we did a game in USF on the Hilltop.
Sure.
And he was mesmerized by the Bill Russell display out at War Memorial Gym out in the foyer.
That doesn't surprise me.
Oh, yeah.
Because Bill Russell was such a unique character. A lot of people thought he was a complete asshole, but a complex guy. And then if you read what he had to endure. So, and not Will Chamberlain, just the opposite, right? Did you ever have a chance to meet? Oh, you would have met Will Chamberlain. That was way too long.
I met him briefly when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I got his autograph.
Some people say he's the greatest in the NBA.
Some say it's Kareem.
There you go. A shot that they don't master these days. It drives me nuts. Yeah. And the
unstoppable.
Rick Barry, the underhand free throw too. Yeah, all that stuff. But yeah, so you are now, no pun intended, at the top of your game, and not that you weren't before, but I'm reading about I did a little research, not a lot, because I played the Larry King card. I don't look at notes. I don't read the book. There's no book here yet. But what I'm saying is, I followed you from the time you were doing the Marlins, and then I, for some reason, somebody said, "No, you're right on this. Is Roxy going to do Cal? He's a Cal guy. Joe Starkey any day now is going to retire." You at one point I think said. Well, yes, but all for the fact, you're going to love to do it now. They have a new broadcaster, but you couldn't have done it because you're so preoccupied with ESPN and all the other little networks. Was that the case, or how close were you to becoming a Cal broadcaster?
Well, I did their basketball for a long time.
Right. That's how I first heard of you. Heard you.
It wasn't. No, I am so happy. Rich, ESPN has been fantastic to me. They have been great, and I've been a full-time employee there for a long time, which has been fabulous. They were great to me during COVID. When they're asking, some people had to take. Some places takes. Wow, they didn't waver from their support for me and my family, and it kept me busy during COVID. I was calling games from home, which was fashionable, unfortunately, at the time. But luckily, we're now back to.
That was a weird.
It was a weird.
We're never going to forget that, right?
No, I've been ecstatic to be with them, and I've had opportunities to leave, and I've had
I'm sure
opportunities.
Would you like, for example, if the Giants were to call you?
I'm
not putting you on the spot.
I'm gonna. If somebody calls me about an opportunity, I'm gonna listen. Now, does that mean I'm gonna take it? No, but I'll listen.
And you're content now doing what you do.
Oh yeah.
And you didn't work the World Series, but on ESPN, I'm sure you would have wanted to, but that's not your place now. So have you heard any kind of inkling as to perhaps putting you on? I mean, you were on prominent broadcasts and so forth, where you got more prominence, say, doing a Super Bowl for radio, or doing it for Westwood. I'm just using that as an example, not that particular, or doing NBA, or doing. Is that on the next step, or are you content right now? Hey,
I don't know what's next.
Okay.
Whenever they tell me to look, I work for people. If they tell me to do something, I'm going to do it. And the best ability is availability, right? And my boss's call, can you do this? Yes, I can. And I get to do Major League Baseball playoffs on ESPN Radio.
Right.
I get to do the Stanley Cup playoffs on TV.
Wow.
I get to do tons of college basketball, and I get to do the NFL on ESPN Radio. All these things I get to do, and I love the variety. It keeps it fresh. Now, I have to keep up a pretty heavy bandwidth to get as much information as possible and be smart about my prep. But
Larry King used to say, "It beats working."
Exactly. Right. It does beat. The way I look at it, Rich,
I mean, I know it's work, but
But I look at it. I love what I do. I love to be around the game. I love
sports.
I love sports, and the work for me is being away from my family.
Yeah,
getting on airplanes, in and out of hotels.
How does your wife deal with it? Not that she's going to say you can't go.
She knew what she was getting into, because I was already doing this when we first started dating many years ago. So it's not like all of a sudden, hey, I'm going to change careers and have a midlife crisis. I'm going to start traveling now all the time when I was home. It wasn't like that before. Right. And so she knew
your kids. Well, they're older now.
It's
right.
It's hard, especially when they were younger, and I had to miss a lot of things. And
well, you do a broadcast, say, on a Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I miss. A lot of times they travel with me on the holidays.
That's good. Okay.
So I try to incorporate that as much as possible. But what I do is not. I don't look at it, Rich, as work. I don't.
Well, you shouldn't, honestly. I mean, I know it's work. At the end of the day, it's work.
But if I start looking at it as work, then that's probably the time for me to stop doing it, because I'm getting paid to go watch baseball, get hockey, football, basketball. That's my job, and they're actually paying me to do it. And I'm ecstatic that
you were known. This is a kind of a question I didn't want to ask, but somebody, look, I'm an advocate, which could be great or bad for you in your case. You were known in the Bay Area as being very aggressive, very, shall we say, to get jobs. And my philosophy was, even if that was the case, and I don't know, I'm going to ask you to illustrate on this. If you know you're good, no matter what, whether you're an art director or if you're a plumber, and you work hard to get yourself known, then I don't see any issue with that. I used to tell people, I had a reputation, still do, I said, hey, look, if I don't toot my own horn, who the hell will? So with that in mind, were a couple of people, I mean, these are not people that are, oh, you asshole, he is. But you were known for being very aggressive in getting Roxy Bernstein information out there that, hey, Roxy was available. Roxy knew his craft. I want, you know what I mean. I'm talking about this. Yes, no?
Well, I mean, I think if you're not your biggest advocate, then who is going to be out there trying to help your career? And look, if there's an opportunity, if I was interested in it, I was going to go for it. And I worked a lot in minor league baseball. Everybody's got to work their way up. And I did that. Look, I was in the right place at the right time when I was young. And I got the Cal radio job a year after I got out of school. Ted Robinson was doing the Cal games at the time. And then Ted was leaving to take the Stanford football job, and the job opened up. Right. And Cal knew I would work cheap. Hey, no matter what we throw at him, he's probably going to take it. And they were at a time when they were on a smaller station. And
I remember that.
And they offered me the job. Now I was filling in for Ted when Ted had to miss some games the year before for, he was doing some stuff for CBS, and I got to do a few games. That was my first real taste of getting paid to do a game.
Right.
And I was their pre and post game.
Did you ever go to the stadiums and take a tape recorder?
Oh, yeah. But I got my start when I was a student at Cal, when I was on the student radio station. And I'd call play-by-play on KALX, a 500-watt FM station. I got to do
I listen to it every night, 90.7.
Yes, men's and women's basketball, baseball.
Segment.
We did talk shows. We did sports update.
Right.
That's where we cut our teeth.
Right.
And while I was going to school, I interned and then was hired at CanBR to be a producer.
Wow.
I interned at Channel 2 while I was going to college. So I was starting already to try to get out there and meet people, and you never know who can help you in this business. Right. And so I was out there hustling. And I became sports director at the student radio station by the time when I finished out. And
the rest is history.
It was a great experience, and it really trained me and helped me. Then, landed some minor league baseball jobs out of that, and did that for a number of years.
Was the Marlins your first, or was it the A's?
Well, no, the Marlins was my first full-time job, and really the only full-time job was
in Miami.
It was different. Miami, first off, I had an unbelievable partner in Dave Van Horn, who is the Ford Frick Award winner, Hall of Fame broadcaster, was the first ever voice of the Montreal Expos.
Wow.
And he was an incredible partner for me to learn from. I still communicate with Dave all the time.
What's he doing now?
He's retired, just living in Florida.
Gotcha. What was it like working in Miami?
It's certainly...
And you were married
very
at the
different.
time still, right?
We got married after my first year in Miami. I was there for 3 years. And it was, first off, it was a great group to travel with. And it's some interesting times because it was Jack McKeon's last year, 2005, as their manager. Then the 1 year Joe Girardi was the manager. Of course, would have go on to manage the Yankees.
They won the World Series in 2004, was it?
With the Marlins?
Marlins.
03. So they won a couple years.
Right.
05 was my first year there.
Right.
And then, so I saw some interesting things working there.
Sure.
But
What was it like working in Miami? Now, I know you weren't single, but
yeah,
the whole
it's just a different environment. It really is.
Yeah.
And Miami is such an event-driven town.
Yeah.
They love winners, and if you're winning and it's an event, they'll come. If a team is struggling, they might not necessarily.
And they played in that cavernous stadium where they'd have like 5,000 people. Right. Yeah.
There was a game in 2007, and the Marlins were way out of the race. It was a Wednesday afternoon, midweek game against the Washington Nationals.
Oh, my God.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to count people, see how many people are in the stands.
And
I got about 10 minutes before first pitch, I was at 164.
I was going to say 136. And they announced it was like 5,000 or whatever. Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
But what was the whole experience? I'm not asking you, but you're a guy and you're a good looking guy and whatever. You're in, come on, we partake in a suds or two.
Okay.
And you're, I know that stadium is outside the city limits, but you're near Miami and it's notorious for.
It's crazy. I rarely went into Miami. I was living up in Fort Lauderdale, which was
by design, or
because the ballpark was up that way.
Right.
And it was just easier for me.
So you never went to
like if I had friends come in from out of town, we go down to South Beach. We go out for.
What was that like?
It was fun. If you wanted fun, it wasn't hard to find in South Florida.
As my friend would say, lots of shiksas. It's okay. You can laugh. Fuck PC. This is free reign. We know you're a married man. You're very healthy and kids. You got through it's my Larry King. You got kids. You're getting them through college. And I'm just curious because you heard about that, and it used to be a story about gamblers on like the first night in of whatever professional team playing the whomever, the Dolphins, or they have curfews and stuff. Bet the home team because the away team was around screwing around, and all that. That's maybe
I think
Housewives' Tale.
Maybe back in the day.
Yeah.
It's a little different now.
Make a lot more money.
Like, for example, you think, teams going into Vegas and playing the Vegas Golden Knights. Well, Look how good Vegas is a good team. So how much do you weigh the Vegas nightlife as opposed to playing a really good team that's already, won a Stanley Cup in their brief history?
I don't know how that could.
It's probably a happy medium between the two. Yeah. I mean, let's face it. If people want to go out and have fun, they can have it. And I've seen it.
Two's on the loose. That was years ago, but the money is too big now. And I think they understand. Yeah.
There's too much on the line.
The temptation,
social media,
still with Vegas.
Yeah.
And, you got Miami. And did you? So you lived there, obviously.
I lived there during the season.
So
in the off season, I was still here, and I was doing Radio Cal.
That must have been summers in Miami. Oh,
not fun.
God.
When
big flies. It's 100 degrees.
And again, this was before they had a roof. This was open stadium.
Yeah. You're right.
Rain cells would move through, and we'd have some long nights at the ballpark trying to wait out rain delays.
Palmettos and
the bugs, as we called them, the no-see-ums, because all of a sudden you'd get bit and you had no idea by what. It was a bug you didn't see.
Yeah, I went there many times. I went to a bar mitzvah there, and actually a wedding in January. I took my mother. This was back 20 years ago, and it's January in fact, it was 2006, and it had that smell. When you go to New York, you go to wherever.
There is a definite scent.
A scent, yeah. And then it dawned on me. Somebody said, "Well, it's the hot dog. They have those hot dog vendors on the corner with the bad water, and it sifts into the air. That's what gives that smell." Same thing in Florida. It has all that swamp and the water, and it's humid, and it could be in January.
It's not the same as when you get off the airplane in Hawaii and get greeted by all the smell from the leis and the flowers, which is a little bit different.
A little different.
Yeah.
I never thought. I never factored that in, but I was just wondering what that would be like. So then you're done with that, and you come, and then you start doing a lot more broadcasts, and you did. When did you start doing ESPN?
Not long after I moved back here full time, because part of it why I left the Marlins is my wife and I made the decision, and we had our daughter my last year there. We wanted to raise our kid in California, and we're Californians, and they all of a sudden wanted to change.
You were born in San Mateo.
Yeah, I was actually born in San Francisco, but grew up on the peninsula.
We're in San Mateo.
But after they wanted me to move to Miami full time, and I had told them, no, I'm not. I have this job in the off season. I'm not giving that up. And then they're like, well, if you don't stay here, then, we don't know if we can keep you around. I'm like, look, I'm not moving. And it was just, look, I had a great experience, but it wasn't the right fit for me.
When you were young, you could afford to.
And it came back, and shortly thereafter, I had an opportunity with ESPN and worked my way up with them. My inroad was college basketball, having done college basketball for a number of years on radio at Cal. Shortly thereafter, the Pac-12 formed and the Pac-12 network started, and I was one of the first employees that the Pac-12 hired for the network. And so it just kind of grew. I hadn't done much TV. I'd done some, but I hadn't done much. And it just kind of grew from there. But there were some other things that popped up along the way. Like early on, I was the voice in the 1-year history of the legendary San Francisco Demons of the XFL.
I remember that
played at
2000,
Oracle Park.
Right?
Yeah. So did that.
That was the 1 year.
Yeah. That was an interesting experience within itself, working for Vince McMahon.
Rod Smart. Yeah, what was that like? That must have been an experience.
He was probably one of the most intimidating people I've ever talked to.
Yeah.
Like, I remember interviewing him, and I almost felt, Rich, these eyes were piercing through the back of my head.
Yeah, that intense face.
Very intense.
Yeah.
But, a lot of the WWE people, whether it was, The Undertaker, those wrestlers would show up at the games.
Didn't he encourage the players to date the cheerleaders, right?
I think that was kind of pushed a little.
Yeah,
it was shtick. But it was a fun experience. Yeah. And Merton Hanks was my color analyst.
Good broadcaster.
And then, oddly enough, how things come full circle, then Merton was in charge of football operations for the Pac-12.
Wow.
So our lives kind of come back together. But that was a great experience. Did some work for the San Jose Sharks early in my career, which was great. And getting to just pick Randy Hahn's brain and be around him. And when Dan Rusanowski had his horrible car accident.
I remember that. Yeah, that was wild.
And just being around that. But that was a great experience for me as well. Then I got to fill and do some Giants games.
Were you a hockey guy at the?
Yes.
You were always a hockey guy.
So
okay, because that's a hard sport to. That's not necessarily broadcast wise, but I'm saying just to learn because it's it's not a West Coast sort of themed kind of a sport. It became that way with King.
Now, when Wayne Gretzky got traded to LA,
right.
But the Sharks, look, they knew Dan was in pretty bad shape at the time, and they knew, okay, let's get through tonight and we'll figure out what's going on going forward.
And I'm going to just tell people, Dan Rusanowski's still with them. He was the radio play-by-play broadcaster
from
day one, and was in a very, very bad accident. I believe he was coming home after a game.
No,
or it was before the game.
It was the morning skate.
Right,
he was heading home after it was the Sharks against the Devils.
All right,
and somebody ran a red light and T-boned his car. And
he was in bad shape.
And luckily, everything is okay. And Dan, great, and health-wise, everything took a little while for him to get back, but he's still strong as ever now. But literally got a call about 2.5 hours before the game started. Can you get here and do the game tonight? And I wasn't planning on going to the game. And all of a sudden, all right, I got to go call a hockey game.
They got to be frustrated. The fact here they are. They've been in the Bay Area now, 30 years, something like that.
Over 30 years.
Over 30 years, and they got all the great attendance and Finn. They haven't won yet, and
they're close.
They're close. Well, they played in Stanley Cup and all that, and to see like a Golden Knights team out of Vegas win a Stanley Cup. It's ancillary kind of stuff. We can go away from that, but I just was curious as to how it must have felt for them to be on the short end of the stick. So I know people that just love hockey, right? Mm-hmm. So for you, again, this even all the same, even with hockey.
I mean, I'm passionate about it all, but I love hockey.
Okay.
My son is a travel hockey player.
I understand,
and but I love the game and the intricacies of the game.
I talked to you about this a little while ago, but I want to. Giants notoriously they have had and are going to probably have issues upcoming with their broadcast team. So if they called you, say, and I know you. I have to ask this question because it's you said you'd listen to anything, but would that, let's just say forget any major league team. You already did your stint there. You live in the Bay Area, but would, if the Giants said, look, Miller any day now, he's 70, going to be 73, and they have issues with other people. Would you, if they gave you what they pay, a formidable, would that be something that you'd be interested in, or not yet?
Again, if somebody called me, okay, I'm going to listen. And I've listened over the years.
Have they ever contacted you, the Giants? Not just for
I did some games for them in 03.
I know you did, but like I'm talking about, like maybe something a little bit more permanent.
I've not talked to them at all.
Okay,
I haven't.
Okay.
And look, if they want to come to me, great, and I listen. But at this point,
what's your Social Security number? I'm actually doing it.
I'm ecstatic getting to do what I'm doing, and that might cut into what I'm doing, and I don't know if I'd want to do that, to be honest with you.
Is there something that you'd love to do that you aren't doing now? Not that you couldn't do it.
That's a really good question.
Well, I'm Larry King. No, not Larry. I mean, like if you, I mean, you do all this, pretty much all this.
At this point, to be honest with you, I do some NFL and radio.
Right. No,
I got a game coming up in a couple of weeks.
Right.
At this point, I'm really happy with what I'm doing in my role with ESPN, and my spread thin, but I like it because I like that variety. I get to do the four big sports,
right?
And
ever thought about, is it always sports? Ever thought about news, or not really?
No,
you like what you do.
I like operating the toy department of life. That's really what sports is.
Good answer.
Because it's not. Am I passionate about it? Yes, I am. Do I love what I do? Yes. But at the end of the day, it's not life or death.
Now, you've been working for ESPN, and you did the Major League Baseball, the playoffs. Do you ever, and this is a tough question to ask, but I as somebody who at one point, not play-by-play, do you ever go to the powers that be in ESPN and say, hey, look, guys, I paid my dues. I think people really are now beginning to hear me and see me, etc. Could you, do you tell them, or is that not protocol? Hey, could you consider me for, whatever? Or is that not, you just don't, not you, meaning you.
I expressed, when ESPN got the NHL package, for example, I expressed to my bosses, hey, I've done hockey. I'd love to do it.
Right.
And they were receptive.
Okay.
But I like doing games. People, don't you want to do Sports Center? Don't you want to I don't want to do studio.
I can tell you.
I love being in the environment and the energy that you're at stadiums, arenas, ballparks. That's what I get really charged up about. Is
so a guy like a Scott Van Pelt type,
right?
SVP, like that.
I don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that. That's fine.
I have had opportunities, but I want to do games. I like being in the environment, and that's what I got into this business for. As a kid, I loved going to games. Yes, I would watch games and I'd listen to games at night as I'm going to sleep. I'd listen to Bill King. I'd listen to Hank Greenwald as I'm going to sleep. I don't want to date Greg Papa, but Greg, I listened to you too as when I was a kid, falling asleep. But that's what I had young aspirations of getting into this business. Okay, yes, did I dream of playing? I did. But I also came to the realization, you know what? I'm probably not going to the NBA. It's probably not happening as a player. So what's the next best opportunity for me is to be around the game. And I had a close family friend that was a longtime broadcaster in the NBA, and I got to sit with him way back in the day. This was years ago when a 5-6-year-old kid.
I'm not trying to patronize you. You look the same. You get that a lot. You look. I don't know.
I don't know.
About 35 right now. 18.
I wish. Thank you.
No. You look, and you sound the same. Voices are hard to, but. Yeah, I'm just giving you a personal reflection on that. I'm not trying to, patronize you, as I say, but you look the same. And the home run call, particularly of course, the Kike Hernandez call and all that was, you see, and this is me, but I grew up with Bill King and Lon Simmons and Greenwald and Ted Robinson and all that. And you're in the old days kind of, but. And this is a story I want to get your thing on, and you'll understand this. Dwayne Murphy, I think I've told this story once, maybe not on this show, was a baseball player with the Oakland A's in the 80s. Billy
Center fielder.
Center fielder.
Yeah.
And Bill King was the play-by-play guy. And it was, I think, like 83 or 84, something like that. And Dwayne Murphy hit a game-winning home run. And excited, and it was just that. And so after the game, Bill King walks into the clubhouse. And Dwayne Murphy goes up to Bill King. This is a true story. Ken Korak, I think, told me this story. And he says, "Hey, are you Bill King?" This is Dwayne Murphy. And Bill King says, "Yeah." He goes, "Hey, you got to rev it up a little bit, man. I mean, I just hit a home run, and you got to be more excited." You know what Bill King said? Bill King looked at him, straight face, as only Bill King could do. And he says, "Young man, you just paid me the highest compliment ever." Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Because your professionalism, your credibility is on the line.
Well,
and,
you know,
in an area,
right.
for example, that we live in the Bay Area, the overtly homerism is not endearing to the fans.
And I don't
it's
mean,
not.
Look, you got to be enthusiastic.
Sure.
Not you, meaning you, but I'm saying in general, of course you do. And we're all look, does Bill King sound more excited when the A's or whenever the Warriors, the Raiders? Of course. It's the moment. It's the manner. It's acknowledging. One story I want to ask you this. Sorry for taking over, but
no.
When you turn on a broadcast and somebody says, "Could you know just by no score, but can you determine who's winning the game if you turn on, let's say, a baseball broadcast, just by the fact that there's no score?" But the inference was, some play-by-play broadcaster, you can tell when their team is losing, and
a little more energy when they're winning,
right? And that's what I love about you too, is the fact that I don't know, and I know you're doing national shows and all that, but I heard you one time. You don't know. And what was great about Bill was not only the fact that he was so articulate, so fantastic, and the wordsmith and all that. He was almost as excited when the opposition would score a basket or a home run or a touchdown. Do you think about nuances like that when you're doing your broadcast?
Yeah, and it's a different presentation as opposed to I'm doing a national game as opposed to when I was working for a team. Because, when you're working for a team, I think when you listen to me, and again, I tried to pattern myself after Bill.
Right.
Because that was as big an influence on me as anybody. That you got an understanding of my energy for a specific play for a team, but at the same time, you have to pay respect to the game. And if somebody, when I was doing Cal, for example, hit a game-winning shot against Cal.
Well, yeah.
Was I angry inside? No. Absolutely, I was. But at the same time, you have to do the moment justice. And you have to get excited about the moment. Right. One of the hardest things I've ever had to call. This was probably 3 years ago. My brother-in-law is a head Division I college basketball coach. And I'm doing their conference tournament.
Wow.
And they're playing in the semifinals. And they blew a late lead. And a kid against them hit this desperation game-winning three at the buzzer. And
you're doing the broadcast.
My brother-in-law's
bail out you,
season.
But
I have a job to do.
Of course, of course.
But I have to get excited about the moment.
Right.
At the same time, knowing that this is just gut-wrenching for my family. But I had to do the moment justice. And I made sure after that call, hey, did I do it right? Did I do it justice? And they said, you absolutely did.
What did your brother say?
He understood. Okay. And he knows I have a job to do.
He's going to go up and kill you. I don't mean like
hey,
that.
I wasn't guarding the guy, so it wasn't my fault.
That's right.
But right there is probably a hardest thing as I had to
test
do.
Test your skill.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, we're good. We got a few more minutes. But see, that's what my thing was. I never thought. I mean, I was a kid, literally like 10 years old in 72 when the Immaculate Reception. I cried. I couldn't go to school the next day. And I grew up with Bill King. Yeah, I was all and Holy Toledo, and I didn't realize and how fantastic he was, particularly as you know, Warriors. and just standing up with the microphone on the. Do they still use those?
I don't think they use those anymore. We've evolved with our technology.
Have you ever done a simulcast?
No, I have not.
Right.
Oh, you know what? I take it back. I did when I was doing some stuff for the A's, but before every game was on TV. Sometimes like the midweek afternoon games that wouldn't get any ratings or not many people were watching, they would just take our audio and put it over the video from the ballpark.
And by the way, a simulcast is when they're doing a simultaneous broadcast on radio and television.
And I'm not a fan of simulcasts because they're two different presentations. Television, if you're watching the game at home, you can see it. Right. And you don't need to be as descriptive. It's an art. It's a different broadcast where on radio, you can't see. So you have to continuously make sure you're giving the score, situation.
Is baseball the toughest sport to broadcast? Because you have to tell stories. You don't have the action doesn't dictate the pace, right? Or am I wrong?
The pitch clock has changed.
Yeah,
it did. Because Rich, if you had a 10-1 game in the fifth inning, all right, what am I going to do? What stories can I break out of the bucket here to keep you from changing the channel and listening to the broadcast? And how do I help keep you entertained if the ball game is a dud? I have no control over what's happening on the field or the court or the ice. But
I used to say Lon Simmons, that was his best work.
Yes.
If it was 10-1 in the fifth, he would get some interesting observations. Usually maybe weather reports in the broadcast.
Whatever you got to do to make it entertaining.
Lon was fantastic.
But that's the difference.
So what's the
with the pitch clock?
Yeah, it makes it. You got a tighter broadcast.
I wouldn't say anything is easy. They all have their challenges. They're all different.
So like basketball,
for example, college basketball, Rich. There's probably 8-9 guys in each team that they really need to be dialed in on. But I'm prepared for anything. And so of all the information I have going into a game, I maybe use 5 to 10% of it, but you don't know what you're going to need because the game will dictate the information you get.
Right. So what like when there's baseball, when there's the stop of the action and all the beginning of the broadcast, like I'm a sucker for, there's Bill King was so great. There's when he used to talk about the clouds in the sky. It's a beautiful day where there's some filtered clouds and all that. And yet some broadcast, I'm not vilifying them. I'm just saying, a lot of people say, I wish the guy would talk more about the weather. We know it's 72 and sunny, but, Bill had such a moment to where he could do all that and yet keep your interest and all that. And he just did a little
the command to entertain.
Right.
And to inform. Right. And I think Ken Korak does an exceptional job of also.
That's the score too.
But you can also envision the game. And there's little subtleties I've taken from Ken, getting to sit next to him, work with him as well. Lights have taken full effect.
That's
right. Things like that. And there's little things.
Lon Simmons, they said, used to have the thing
like the first play of the baseball game, and that's how our ball game begins. Like sometimes,
that's not one of my favorite features, but that's all right.
That's Ken.
What was the thing with the hourglass?
Well, that was John Miller.
Oh, for scores?
Yes, the egg timer to make sure he gave the score before, because I read about it in John's book.
3 minutes,
So you have to give the score in that particular time. But we're so lucky here to have
we do
Ken. And you look at Miller, the Giants and John and Dave and with Dwayne and Randy and Dan.
Oh God, for hockey
and Greg,
right?
And we're lucky that we have these exceptional broadcast talents here.
Right,
Tim Roy.
Oh, I love Tim Roy. Yeah, it's then basketball. Even though it's a constant flow of action, it's very, very, it's quick. You got to know. I love his. At the logo, always at the logo. And the guy I was going to ask you about, and we'll wrap it up pretty soon, but Kevin Harlan, always inside the painted numbers.
He's got the pipes. Kevin's got the pipes.
And his dad was a big broadcaster too. But inside the painted numbers, at first it's kind of corny, but he paints a picture. And it's, and he talks about, remember the black cat that went on the field?
It's at the 40. It's at the 30.
Yeah. And who would have thunk, right? Especially in this world, and today you can't, I'm not that he was going to be.
He has fun, and that's what
he puts it in fun. Yeah.
We're at a game.
Is that one of your top guys you like?
Oh, Kevin's great. Yeah. I mean, there's a number of national guys. I love Dan Schulman. I think Dan is
What
fantastic.
happened with that?
Well,
he's with ESPN, then he went to go
he's
to
still
Toronto, right?
Yeah, but he's from Toronto.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
he
Well,
does
that
the Blue
makes
Jays
sense
on
then.
TV.
Yeah, I would never understand.
And I think he wanted to be home more because
right. Okay.
When you're on the road as much as he was,
Right.
it's challenging.
Right.
But nationally, I think
What do you
Dan
think of a
fantastic.
guy like, since we're talking World Series, Sterling?
John is, first off,
New York,
he's a phenomenal person.
He
like
is.
the time I've spent around him.
Yeah, I got to meet him one time.
Well, Susan, I tell you.
Really?
And with his catchphrases and the home runs, it's entertaining.
Well,
and he's an entertainer.
That could only work at pretty much New York.
True.
Right? It couldn't work here.
But you look at all, across the board, there's so
I love it. I think it's hysterical. And I don't know why. And because that's precisely the kind of shtick, whatever, that would irritate me. And it's funny. Sartorian, man, it was the judgian. Yeah. And he's got the great Stantonian, right. So, no, it's
Giancarlo
had a little Harlow. Yeah, no, it's those of you who don't know, John Sterling, who, by the way, in 1984, at age 22, I got to he was doing basketball for the Atlanta
Hawks.
I was his spotter. I got to sit down, honest to God, sit down on the Oakland Arena, and I did spotter work for him. Bullseye! Every basket was a bullseye. So then when he became with the Yankees, anyway, I'm glad he was able to come back for the playoffs. Roxy, I'm so thrilled that, and we can keep going on and on, but I know you got a life and I don't. I got to go drink coffee and worry about, cats and people coming to my door later and knocking the door. So don't come by.
It's not. What are you handing out tonight?
Probably like my mother used to say pennies, right? Because those were the days, right, when they had the people were putting shit in the apples. And I don't know what I'll do. I'll see. Maybe the weather's nice and all that. But it is so, and I love having on people that I deem interesting. And I got to tell you, when you first came aboard, I didn't really like you. No, I didn't know.
Was that just today when I walked in?
You showed up. You're here. Brought your own coffee. I was even making coffee.
Tea. I'm not a coffee drinker.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Tea. He drinks tea, and then all that. No, but I started listening to religiously ESPN and baseball, and you are. It's all deserved. And I am kissing your ass now because you're good. If I wasn't, I've had people on that I wasn't crazy about. But what I'm saying is, you've really become an acclaimed not just a play-by-play. I like the term broadcaster. The inflection of the voice, the setting the scene and all that. And yes, again, I compliment you because there are a lot of broadcasters these days, play-by-play. They don't have that edge. They think almost inside the bubble. I think you have the elements of being a national. I hope you are a national guy by definition. But no, I'm really, I'm honored to have been able to interview you.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
This was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Big Vinny.
You remember that?
Of course, the roundtable commercials. Come on.
If you only knew. If it wasn't for that, I would have. Anyway, I didn't tell him to bring that up, but somebody I never bring that up. People say, "Why don't you bring it up?" Because I don't. Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. That was 20 years ago already. Wow. Scary? Is that scary? But anyway, no, I'm so happy and grateful that you were able to come over here and speak to us.
This was fun. This was a good time.
And all that. And anything you want to plug, say, hit me. Give me a hit. No, nothing. I did all right. Yeah. Right.
We're good.
Boxing. That's the only,
Yeah.
Boxing.
I've never done boxing, and I don't really have much of a desire to do it.
Really?
Yeah. I get enough. I get fights in hockey. I'm good there.
That's right. I forgot about that. The gloves are off. It was really great to talk to you, and I hope this is one of many appearances. And I love you're very good at embellishing the story, and I appreciate that. And where can we see you next?
Monday night, opening night of college basketball. I'll be in Spokane. I've got Baylor against Gonzaga.
Spokane.
2 top 10 teams going at it opening night.
Is that the hardest place to get to?
No, you can announce.
I know, but
no, there's some places that have its challenges.
Yeah,
but that's not one of them for me.
Yeah, no, I heard that about that. Maybe I was thinking of the Palouse country.
Palouse is fly to Spokane and drive.
Right.
That has its, especially if the weather's bad, it has its challenges.
I love the fact that you have a humbleness to you, and I'm happy that you're doing real well. Congrats to you, and family's good and all
Thank you.
that.
Thank you.
And
This was fun.
and I really, really appreciate you coming by. It was
My
really,
pleasure.
really
This was
fantastic.
great.
Thank
This
you.
was great. Thank you. You've had Joe Starkey here, Frank Somerville. So just
the
next guy.
You and Ted Robinson,
and Ted, yes,
and Ross McGowan, and we're gonna have more.
Ted's got some great Bill stories too.
I absolutely. I remember Ted when he was doing. People forget Ted did the Warriors too. He didn't just do the Niners and the Giants and all that. Yeah. So anyway, thank you, man.
You got
Appreciate
it, Rich.
you come by.
It was fun.
We have been talking to. Why did I talk like that? We have been talking. We've been interviewing, and I've had the greatest time to talk to Roxy Bernstein. Folks, we'll see you later. Thanks for watching. Do become a subscriber on my channel. Make a donation if you have the money. Tell your priest, your rabbi, friends, enemies, whatever the hell, your plumber about me, and we'll see you later. Thanks a lot.